Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rose Travick, and I am the publicist for Ignatius Press. I am joined today by one of our amazing authors, Kendra Tierney, who comes to us all the way from California. And Kendra is a wife. She's a mom of 10 kids, from a college student all the way down to little ones. And she is just an amazing resource that we have at Ignatius Press. We are so excited to have you today, Kendra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. We're going to be talking about one of your books. You can see it here on the screen, hopefully, the Catholic All Year Compendium, Liturgical Living for Real Life. And Kendra, I just wanted to kind of start off by talking about that subtitle of your book, Liturgical Living for Real Life. What is liturgical living for those of us who are not familiar with it, and how do you keep it real in your home?
All right. Yeah, good question. So the liturgical calendar is basically how the Catholic Church keeps track of all the feast days and seasons of the year. So that means, we're familiar with Advent and Christmas and Lent and Easter, and then we've got 2 sections of ordinary time. And then in addition to that, we have individual days dedicated to different saints, to historical events in the lives of the Jesus and the Holy Family, and events that happened in the early church. Within there we have, fasting days and days of celebration. It mostly refers to the way that we celebrate the Mass. That's really what, when we talk about the liturgy, that's what we mean. But liturgical living is the idea of bringing those seasons and days home with us for Mass and making them part of our lives at home, part of our family, part of our family culture.
I absolutely love this. So great. It makes it so interesting for kids, especially. It really brings it to life for them. We go to Mass on Sundays, and then you come home, and for many people, it's easy just to kind of go to your day-to-day life and kind of forget about the faith. But this really keeps it alive in your family every day, right?
Absolutely, it does. And it's really, it's sort of the traditional way that the church has catechized the faithful. And there's a beautiful encyclical that established the Feast of Christ the King, which is at the end of November. And in it, I don't remember which pope was explaining that the reason that the church gives us these feast days is because he could give a homily and that would be forgotten almost immediately. He could write a book, he could write a paper, and it would be, read by a few. But a feast day makes that celebration, is meant to make that celebration a part of the lives of the faithful, and something that we come back to again year after year. And what he wanted was us to think about and discuss in our families and in our communities, what does it mean for Christ to be our King? Especially for Americans, that's something that is hard for us to wrap our heads around. But I just love that idea that feast days exist on purpose, for us to make the faith part of our day-to-day lives.
That's great. Yes, absolutely.
And your question about for real life is that these days were really sort of intended to be celebrated, I think, in community, in parishes, in neighborhoods and towns, and that I think we are doing a better job of that than we were 10 or 20 years ago, but it's still not the norm. But so that's the goal. I think that's the long-term goal is to bring that back into sort of our consciousness as Catholics, and to celebrate these days together and get that sense of community and celebration and catechism back. But until then, celebrating in your home, with your family is a wonderful thing to do. Still, and we reap those benefits in a smaller circle. But the real life portion is that you can tweak the way that you do your liturgical living in the home to reflect the way that your family usually does things, your normal family routine. So, if you often go out, on family outings, or you often go out to dinner or something, you can sort of look ahead to the liturgical calendar and choose to do things on days that might give it a little bit more meaning. For us, it's mostly dinner table based because, family dinner is really important to us. So for us, that's really the focus, is on cooking meals that are traditionally associated with the feast day, or just having, something that feels a little bit special. And then just having those conversations around the dinner table.
I love that, Kendra. And that makes it very doable for, I think, a busy mom, because everyone has to make dinner. So with just a little bit of planning, you can incorporate this liturgical living into your cooking, which is a win-win for everybody. One of the things that I really appreciate about your book, again, is that it's all in chronological order. So one thing that I do, I keep it right here on my desk. And when I meal plan, I just flip through it and I look ahead to the week, and I say, oh, okay, this feast day is coming out, I'm making my menu. I'm thinking about what we're going to eat. And I love that it's very practical what you have, because it can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. One example, recently we had the Blessed Mother's birthday here. And, I think you suggest in the book having a birthday cake for the Blessed Mother. And that's something where you can go to the grocery store and get a store-bought cake, or you can make a fancy gourmet layer cake, whatever you have time to do. So I think sometimes people can get overwhelmed thinking about liturgical living, but it is very accessible. The ideas you give, they're very easy to tailor to what you have going on in your family. And I just really love that about the book. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I know when I first started looking into these sorts of things to do them with my kids who were young at the time, what I could really find was crafts that were sort of based on things that people were doing in CCD classes, I guess. And that's just not my.
Me neither, Kendra. I'm with you.
Just not my thing. You don't but really, my point in bringing that up is, if you like crafts, definitely do crafts.
Yes.
But for us, what has worked out to keep this up for many years, we've been doing it 12 or 14 years now, pretty regularly as part of our family life, and coming back to some of these same things again and again. And
right. I love that there's really traditions that the kids remember.
Right.
And again, sometimes you have to kind of wing it, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, it's St. Francis feast day, we're having Italian food, but sometimes there's more deeper ideas that you have in the book where you can do that. And it's amazing how kids remember, right, from year to year.
Mm-hmm.
They remember that last year you did this activity. And
I always tell people that, it's two sides of the coin. Some people worry, oh, I didn't start this early enough. My kids are too old. How can I start this now? Do it one time in my house, and it is a tradition we have always done, and we must.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, so don't worry about starting too late, because your kids, my kids anyway, jump right on board. So,
and you're in the amazing position now, having older kids. I only have an 11-year-old as my oldest. I'm starting to see this, but
yes.
you're seeing that now. The older kids are getting involved, and they are helping to make these traditions continue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's been really lovely to see for me and our family, that as the kids get older, and they want to help with the cooking, which is never my first choice, because of course it always makes everything take twice as long. But I really do that's something that motivates me, is, all right, it's a feast day meal. I'm not going to kick everybody outside. I'm not going to kick everybody out of the kitchen. I will let you help. But that means that then, years that I have been, pregnant and not feeling up to cooking, or, my 2-year-old was hospitalized for 5 weeks, right at the beginning of Advent, which is our, some of our very favorite feast days. And, because I had let my, kids come in and help, they were really able to keep things going, even without me being able to be there. And, now I have multiple kids who can drive and go to the grocery store. Really engaged to transfer. We call it, going from team kid to, team little kids, team grown-ups and big kids on the liturgical living front, means that they go from, being the on the side of wonder and excitement of little kids to being able to be on the giving side and the preparing side. And, both sides are fun.
That's great. So why don't we talk today about today's Our Lady of the Rosary.
Yes.
What do you do for this feast day in your family? What does it look like in the Tierney household?
Yeah, so this one is something that we have done for a long time, and it's really fun, is to make a food rosary. So the first place I ever saw it, I think, was in our homeschool group, and we were doing some sort of event, and somebody brought a cupcake rosary, with cupcakes and laid it out on this big table. Amazing. But I sort of took that, I'm like, all right, how can I do that for individuals and on a much smaller basis? So what we do is either chocolate chips or cereal. You can do it with, Lucky Charms. The kids get pretty excited about, and it's got the little marshmallows. It can be the Pop-Tarts. Or the one that we most often do is chocolate chips, but you can also do, Cheerios and raisins, or whatever you've got in the house. And you can either give the kids, so we make out the whole rosary ahead of time with big kids or grown-ups helping, and then they take one off each time and can eat it if they can eat it fast enough, or they can put it in a little bowl to have later. Because that does end up being a lot of chocolate chips for a little
Yes. But hey, it's the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, so if you're going to have chocolate chips, this is a great time, right?
Yeah. But that's really fun. And again, it's just an example of, it's something that the kids get excited about and look forward to year after year, and just gives them those positive associations, with these traditions. And then, of course, what we want is to work the rosary into our family routine. And,
right.
It's a great day to think about, what's going to work for our family for getting this done, because a family rosary is something that really could not be more highly encouraged and recommended in the church. There's a plenary indulgence available every single day for saying a rosary with your family, or with a group of friends, or religious community, or in a church if you're by yourself. And the usual conditions apply, of receiving communion and going to confession. But, so it's not something that we expect that we'll get a plenary indulgence for every time. But if you can't fulfill the conditions for a plenary indulgence, you can get a partial indulgence, which is still very good. Yes. But the idea is that this is something that, that we're told again and again by saints, by popes, by bishops, by Our Lady herself in multiple apparitions, that the rosary is something that's so important. And I know for us, the way that we most consistently get to it is in the car. Anytime we're going on a long car ride, we always say the rosary together, and my kids just have that expectation that they just know that we're going to say the rosary in the car, and that's great. Now, my favorite type of family rosary is sort of cuddled up on the couch around the fire when it's cool and saying the rosary together like that. But but you can't let the ideal get in the way of getting it done at all.
Right. Absolutely. And I love that. And, talking about not letting the ideal get in the way, I used to try to do the rosary in the car, and it just kind of never went well until I got a rosary CD. And then I realized that that's how we could do it, because otherwise I'd get distracted. Kids would be goofing off. I'd be like, we're praying the rosary, guys, get all mad, because I didn't want to be distracted while I was driving. But once I let the CD do the work, it's beautiful, and the kids love it. Another thing is, for years, we tried to do the rosary in the evening, like most people do, like what I did growing up. Disaster, total disaster. And then I realized that, okay, if we do it actually in the morning, for some reason that works a lot better for our family because no one's tired, everyone's awake, and kind of getting ready to start the day. So sometimes you have to be a little strategic, right, with getting the rosary in. Doesn't have to look like it looks for everyone else. We have a comment from someone saying, we love our rosary CD too. That's awesome. Glad I'm not the only one that can't lead the rosary and drive at the same time here. So, and if you have any questions, anyone who's joining us, I should be able to see them pop up on the screen. So feel free to ask away here. Okay, so we've covered today's feast day, Our Lady of the Rosary. Why don't we look ahead? This next month or so is got so much as far as the Church of the Living goes. I know we have Teresa of Avila's feast day coming up. We have Pope John Paul II's, and of course we have Halloween, All Saints Day, All Souls Day. Do you want to talk a little bit about any of those and kind of, again, just to give people some ideas about what liturgical living is going to look like in your house, hopefully in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so the feast of Pope John Paul II is October 22nd, and that's one that we do have a sort of family activity that we often do, and because he all the way through his life, including through his pontificate, he was always enjoyed sports and being outdoors. So we try to go for a family hike. Or even just to walk around the neighborhood. Sometimes it turns into just walking down the hill to the ice cream place and counting that as a hike. But but we do try to get outdoors and and enjoy God's creation. Since the fun thing about the modern saints is that you really can know so much about their actual lives and actual preferences. And for him, we know his favorite dessert. There's the actual recipe of his actual favorite dessert, which they now call papal cream cake. And it's it's pastry and it's it's a little fussy to make, but you can sort of do an approximation with frozen puff pastry dough and vanilla pudding if you want to go that route, or you can make yourself pasty cream and a fancy layered dessert. But it's really delicious.
Try that this year. I haven't done that one yet. So and I love that you have, again, those variations. You can go all fancy and try to make it very beautiful and perfect from scratch, or you can kind of wing it and be a little creative. And I think kids just love whatever you do. That's especially when they're young. Whatever you do, they think is kind of magical, right? So
they do, and I think that it's been a good example in our family sometimes we try things that are not great successes. I mean, if it's dessert, you can probably still eat it, but not everything that we make is beautiful or or perfect. And we'll just try again next year. I made a really bad flan like 2 years ago, the Feast of St. Josemaria. It was terrible. I made myself put it on Instagram anyway because I put the pretty things on Instagram. So I was like, here, I have to admit, I made this ugly flan. And people had advice for how to make a better flan. So maybe I'll try it again.
That's great. And then just, looking ahead past Pope John Paul II's feast day, I'm always curious to hear how people do Halloween, All Saints Day, All Souls Day without going crazy with all the costumes and all of the things that you do. I know on your blog, you've had some very creative ideas about how to do a costume that works for Halloween and All Saints Day. So people go look at that. That's pretty neat. And how do you handle kind of the balance between Halloween, All Saints Day? Not to stir up controversy here, but I think it's an important thing to talk about.
Yeah, I think that I go into a lot of detail in the book about it that has been really interesting to me because of course, you hear, should Catholics even celebrate Halloween? And I did a lot of research into it and became very convinced that yes, if anyone should celebrate Halloween, Catholics should. It's a Catholic holiday with Catholic, with a Catholic backstory, and not all of the things to the contrary that you've heard. And I mean, there's a lot of sort of interesting backstory on there. But But I love the idea of skeletons and the sort of slightly macabre tinges that go along with Halloween have traditionally been to remind us of our own mortality and to remind us that someday we will die and we have to live our lives with that in mind. And so that image of skeletons and skulls is really to remind us on as part of this, what we call Hallowtide. So we have Halloween and then All Saints Day and All Souls Day. So Halloween is really the day that we think about what we call the church militant, which is the church on earth, and that we are striving, to live a life of personal holiness so that we could get to heaven. And so keep bearing that in mind, but still having a good time and having fun and going trick-or-treating and wearing costumes. That can all be part of it, but I like that inspiration for being able to have that conversation with the kids. Like, why is there this skull here?
Right.
I'll explain it to them.
Right.
And then and then the next day, for All Saints Day, we focus on the Church Triumphant. So everybody in heaven, and it's a really beautiful day to think about the saints, the potential saints in our own lives, who, all the saints who aren't canonized, don't have a day on the liturgical calendar, but every person who is in heaven is a saint. And so the idea of All Saints Day is that we are celebrating all of those saints who don't have their own individual day. So, if you had a very holy grandma, or a child who who died young, then that we can be confident is in heaven, and that's sort of their feast day. And then All Souls Day on November 2nd is when we remember the holy souls in purgatory who will get to heaven one day, but aren't there yet and need our prayers and our our sacrifices. And we're encouraged to visit a cemetery in honor of the holy souls in purgatory that whole week from November 1st through 8th.
That's great, and I love how it's all connected. Because we, in our secular culture, you just kind of see this little snippet of just Halloween and just the creepy and the scary and the grotesque. But really, it's all connected when you bring out the Catholic, really, background of all of these states working together. So we do have another question here from Matina. Do you also talk about the saints with children as you cook, or do some other activity or pray together a prayer to the specific saints? When talking about the saints, how do you incorporate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we certainly talk as we're preparing food. Why did we choose this food? Where, when did this saint live? Where did this saint live? Where, or in some cases, the traditional foods that are associated with them are not from a country that they ever visited, but just a country that sort of adopted them as a patron saint. So we definitely have a conversation, and there are a lot of really beautiful prayers throughout the liturgical year that are associated with particular seasons and particular days. So I really love that that liturgical living is sort of that framework for bringing in these different blessings and prayers and devotions that are associated with different particular saints and different seasons.
That's wonderful. So I also just we talked about some ideas, gave some examples, just kind of maybe speak to someone who is listening and is like, wow, this sounds so amazing. I have no idea where to start. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm going to get the book and crack it open and start using it. At the beginning, you actually address this, which I love. Where to start? If you're just starting out, where would you suggest starting? And it's, again, you have this in the book, but can you kind of give us a little hint as to what you would recommend?
Yeah. And so I think a big part of it for us was just taking, you might think that you're not doing any liturgical living in the home, but you probably are. You probably are celebrating Halloween. You probably are celebrating Christmas. So taking a look at those holidays and saying, how can I understand a little bit more about what these holidays mean as a Catholic, and how can I, share that with my family and my community. So that's, there's liturgical living that you're already doing, but all it takes is sort of a little bit of change in mindset. And then after that, as far as adding in new things, what worked best for us is to start inwardly focused, even though, and focus on the saints and feast days that are particularly associated with the members of our family through, name days or, patron saints. Because even though those days are maybe not as important to the universal church, that, focusing inward on our family makes it sort of easier to get that toehold in and really get started. So we celebrate what we call the 3 special days for each person in our family. What we call the 3 special days for each person in our family, which is birthday, name day, and baptism day. So you're probably already celebrating birthdays.
Right.
But to celebrate our baptism days, if we believe what we say we believe about baptism, that's actually a much more important day to remember and celebrate. So, if you don't know your baptism date or or you don't remember exactly when your kids were baptized, you can, do a little research and call the parish where you were baptized, ask your mom, and find out those dates and get them written down on your calendar. And then we allow the person whose special day it is to choose a special meal. And we pull out our baptismal candles, or you can always buy a new baptismal candle. They have them in gift shops and even on Amazon. Just buy another one if you can't find yours. And we, light the baptismal candle. We renew our baptismal promises and, just talk about at dinner why baptism is important and, funny little stories that we remember from that day. And that, there's nothing else that solidifies the importance of that to your kids than actually, paying attention to it and, in the family, showing them with your actions that that you believe it's important. And then the third is their name day. And so, all of our kids have saints' names that we chose to name them after particular saints that we wanted them to have as intercessors in their lives. And so, using those days to talk about that saint and help strengthen that relationship of the child with their name saint. And if, like me, your name is not currently the name of a canonized saint,
Currently.
you can, just choose another patron saint. I like to use my confirmation saint, or, maybe your middle name, or I love going through and finding, connections, or just a favorite saint, as long as if you want to just pick whatever one you want, to be your patron saint. And then choose those as maybe the first saint days that you start celebrating.
That's great advice. And I love how sometimes you have to just be very practical. Like you said, get the baptism candles, write it on your calendar, write the name days, write the baptism dates. For years, baptism dates were actually something that we added in later in our family because I didn't have, didn't make it a priority to get it together yet. But once I just spent an hour getting the candles, writing it in my Outlook calendar, setting the reminders, it's been very easy to incorporate that. We've really enjoyed the baptismal days. And I love that.
Yeah. And that's just really so key. If you want it to happen, you have to write it in a place where it will remind you. And so I like to have it on our wall calendar, which, I have I've got all the saints day, days that that we want to celebrate, and then I write in any of our kids' dates that don't appear on there, and then I also put it in my calendar on my phone with a reminder a week before and a reminder, the 2 days before. And I don't know. I guess I have it like 2 days before and on the day of, so that I will actually remember that it's coming up.
And those reminders make a big difference. I can attest. I totally agree.
Yeah. So great. Get it, get the information where you're going to see it.
Kendra, I think we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes here, but I just wanted to quickly give a little plug for your book, a little book about confession, which came out a while ago, probably at least 5 years ago.
I think maybe 2013.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's another book that you have with Ignatius Press. I tried to find it, but one of my kids was using it and I can't find it. It's just a little book that's great for preparing if you have kids that are going to be making their first confession, like I do this year. It's just a great little resource you can read with them and go over with them. So I really appreciate that one. And then, of course, we have this book, which we've been talking about, the Catholic All Year Compendium, Liturgical Living for Real Life. And then I was just wondering if you could maybe give us a little sneak peek about some new projects you're working on.
Yeah, so I actually have 2 books coming out soon. One is on the Jesse tree, just a short book. I think it launches November 12th, so look for it quickly. And it's just sort of short reflections for families who want to trace salvation history through the Old and New Testament in preparation for Christmas.
Mm. I think we might have lost Kendra there. Well, Kendra, thank you so much for coming.
And then in the spring, I have, hi.
Having a little technical challenge. Keep going.
Yeah, so it's called the Catholic All Year Prayer Companion, and I make a lot of recommendations for different prayers and blessings, scripture verses that are associated with different feast days. I make recommendations for those in the compendium. But this prayer companion has them all in one place. So you don't have to look up things on your phone. You don't have to, look through a stack of prayer books, which is what I have been doing and why I put this together, because I just wanted a resource that would be easy to just, flip to the day, open it up and have that there as a resource for your family and get to try all these different beautiful prayers and devotions that have been practiced for Catholics for thousands of years. And I really love getting to participate in that culture, that heritage that's so important.
That's great. So that book will be coming out in the spring, and again, it's meant to go along with this book here. So, we're very excited about that book, and who knows what will be coming out in the future. I know you have a lot of great ideas, and of course, we're so excited about all the stuff that you're doing. And thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're a busy mom, so we appreciate it that you took the time to come on with us today and tell us all about liturgical living.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kendra. Have a great day.